Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2Us of 2Us Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2Us Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hey, Marsha, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm a little tired. School has been in for a week and a half now. Just about a week and a half. So, yeah.
So were you a little out of practice?
Well, yes.
Getting up and getting to school and standing and...
Yes. Remember how we had the episode where those people that were saying that sitting is the new smoking?
Yes.
Well, my summer was a lot of sitting. Mm-hmm. And the way I think of it is that if sitting is the new smoking, then I have a 2-pack a day habit. And as a result, having to spend the day standing and walking around the classroom and walking around the campus and back and forth to school in the morning because I walk to work. Yeah, my feet are tired. My legs are tired.
Now, Kelly, I would like to point out that it's not even a 2-block walk.
It's about a quarter mile.
No, it's not that far.
Yeah, no, it is.
Really?
By the time you get up the stairs into my office, it's close. It's close to a quarter of a mile. Maybe 0.2 of a mile. Not 0.25, but 0.2 of a mile. Yeah. Okay. No, it's not a long walk at all, but that just shows you how badly and sadly out of shape I am. So, yeah. And my first class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday is at 7:45. And so I've made the commitment to my students and myself. I mean, I told them so I'm accountable. Mm-hmm. They had to make goals that they're accountable for, and I joined them and made a goal that I'm accountable for. I have to be at work between 7 and 7:30 every day, even though I only teach at 7:45 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, tired. Mm-hmm. Back to work. Summer's over. No more sitting.
Yeah. Well.
So, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I'll talk a little bit more about this at the end of the podcast, but my mother-in-law came to visit from Chicago. She was here for about a week, and that was really fun. But you know how it is. Well, I have to be careful what I say, Kelly, because I'm often your house guest. I don't know if this is how you feel, but you know how it is. You have your routine, and It was a great visit. So I don't want to make this sound like it's negative, but it's also kind of tiring because you don't have your normal routine anymore. Right. You have to go sightseeing and things that you don't normally do, and but it was a great visit. It was just really fun, and I'll talk about her at the end of the podcast. Not her, but her at the end of the podcast. I do have a story about her and my dog at the end of the podcast. Okay. And then, but today was a great day. I took Enzo, and I don't any of our listeners that are here in the Seattle area. I took Enzo up to the Edmonds off-leash park this morning. And people who are not in the area, that's a town just north of Seattle. I think it's about, it's like 12 miles north of Seattle. And they have a beautiful dog park right on the beach. And I think it might be the only one that has beach access to the Sound. I know there's another dog park in Seattle that has access to Lake Washington, but the access is very narrow. This is quite wide, quite a large area of beach access. Nice. And it was just really nice. It's a gorgeous day today. It's a high of about 80, so not super hot, but not cold. And he had fun. We were there for about 2.5 hours.
Nice. That sounds like fun.
Pretty wet and sandy, so we had a nice walk then along the marina. There's kind of a boardwalk that goes along the marina, and if I had continued on, I could have gone down to the coffee shop and had a coffee and looked at the water, but I had to get back because he had a I had an appointment. But anyway, it was really nice. So if anybody's in that area, I recommend going to that dog park. And also, if you don't have a dog, just go to that beach because it's beautiful. There's a section then between the dog park and the marina, beautiful beach, and all kinds of play equipment for kids and picnic shelters and bathrooms, and so really nice. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was really, I've not been there before, so it was really fun to check that out. So, what you got going on project-wise?
Well, I sort of stalled on the poncho. I have the whole body of it done, and now I have to pick up for the collar. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had that kind of mood where I want to do something like pick up the collar. So that's been sitting. I did have to start a new project for, our first day back is not classes, it's, meetings and things. And so I did have to start a new project because none of my projects were in the right space for meeting knitting. So I started a pair of socks. They're called the Angler's Loop socks, and they've been in my queue, I want to say maybe 2 years. They've been in my queue for a long time, and they have a nice cable detail down the back of them. Mm-hmm. So I started those. I'm knitting them out of Drops Fabel, I think is how you pronounce it, Fabel. That's the sock yarn that they have. It comes in 50-gram balls. It's the Drops version of like the Regia or one of the, or the Heart and Soul, that sort of workhorse yarn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got that at Nordic Mart.
Yes, when we did the San Luis Obispo yarn crawl,
yes.
I bought some there too.
Yeah, so I've made one pair of really short socks out of just one 50-gram ball, but these will take both of the balls of yarn, and it's a really, really bright, like cobalt blue color. So they're really pretty, and they're fun. They were even though they had cables, they weren't bad for knitting during meetings. I didn't think so. That's been kind of fun. So that's the project that I started. Nothing was finished except I did, and this doesn't really count as finished because it's just a portion of it, but the quilt, my epic project, I was short by, when I first looked at it and we were first talking about it, I was short by 80 squares, and I'm now done with the squares.
Wow.
So I have all the squares done.
And you hand-stitched all of those, right?
Yeah, they don't take very long because they're only like 5 inches. They're like 5 by 5. So there's 2 5-inch seams. So they go pretty fast. And it's not like hem stitch. It's just, regular running seam stitch.
And this explains why you had that 2-pack-a-day habit. Your sitting 2-pack-a-day habit.
Yes.
Because you were stitching those squares. So
I would, yeah. And that has been a nice project for coming home after work and just doing some squares. I don't have to think about it. There's nothing complicated about it. It's just straight stitching of seams. So I've got all the squares done, and now I'm going to put them into strips and sew the strips together and sew those strips onto the parts that are already done, and that'll take a while. But I'm really happy to be finished with all the squares. And I almost ran out of patterned fabric. I didn't think I would, but I have, I don't know, maybe 10 strips of patterned fabric left. And so that was kind of surprising. So that's really what I've been working on. I have something planned, but I'll talk about that later. So what about you? Did you have a little bit more productive 2 weeks than I did?
No, not really. I really have been working exclusively on the Afghan, my what I'm calling Frank's Spirit Yarn Afghan, my epic project, which is the Stephen West Garter Squish.
You always say garter, and then you have to think, and then squish. It's the Garter Squish Afghan, right?
Yes, I know. I don't know why I have such a hard time with that. Anyway,
well, you want to say stitch. I mean, everybody does. I think.
Yeah.
Garter Pause Squish Afghan.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to think. You can tell I have to pause as the rusted gears are slowly turning in my brain to come up with squish. So I've been making pretty good progress. I have now added 3 colors. So I started with kind of a maroon. I added the gold, which was, the yarn I dyed that I was trying to get coral, but I ended up with gold. I put that in. Now I'm putting in the kind of bright Kelly green that I overdyed down at Jorstad Creek.
Okay.
Dye Studios. So, and you and I had a little conversation. Do I just use the yarn up till it's gone? Or do I try to put in the same number of garter stitch rows?
Right.
So like the maroon I put in, I believe I have 10. So I thought, should I match that? And you said just use them up. So I do. So then the next one was the gold, and I think I have 16 rows. Ridges of the garter stitch on the right side. And the only thing I do have to make sure, I have to end on a wrong side row, so I change. There's actually, with garter stitch, if you change colors, there's actually sort of really is a right side. There's one that's a much more clean definition between the 2 colors. On the wrong side, it's a little bit more
it's like dots. Kind of. You see little dots. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to make sure that I change colors always on the right side. So that means I have to when I'm getting down to the end of the ball, I have to sort of look at it and see how much I have. Can I get one more wrong side row in there, or do I need to stop? So anyway, I'm almost done with this green, and then my next color I'm putting in is a pinky purple color, because as you know, Kelly, I have them all labeled.
Right. Well, I'm looking at your project page, and so I can see the pinky purple color in your basket. Cool.
And then the other thing, I know, when I talked about this project last episode, the one thing I forgot to say, remember I was supposed to cast on, the pattern called for 126, but I did 180 based on our math calculations. What I forgot to mention is I wanted to cast on a really stretchy cast on, because sometimes if I just do I never know the names of all these different cast-ons, but I just do a very simple one. Sometimes it doesn't have a lot of stretch to it. Right. Compared to when you bind off. So I wanted something very stretchy, and I just looked on YouTube, and I just basically on YouTube I typed in stretchy cast-on knitting. That's all I typed, and it came up with the German twisted cast-on.
Okay.
Have you ever done that before? I
have, yeah. I can't remember what project I used it on, but I have used that one.
And it's a little complicated. It took a minute to kind of get the hang of it. I had to watch the video a couple times. You know how you watch a little bit, pause it to do the thing, advance a little bit more, pause it. So I did that. So it really does work. It's a very stretchy, springy cast on.
Cool.
So I'd recommend that one.
And it's the one it's similar to the long tail cast on, right? But there's just like an extra part in it.
The long tail cast on, you have the 2 pieces of yarn, but you separate them. Right. So there's one kind of wrapped around your thumb and one kind of wrapped around your index finger. This German twisted one, both are on around your thumb.
Oh, okay. That isn't the one I did.
Okay.
Or maybe it's just a different way of doing it. Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar to me at all. Maybe I did some different one.
And I have to say, it was not really intuitive what I was doing. As I say, I had to keep watching the video over and over again. But it is very stretchy, which is what I wanted. So that's about all I have. I will say the other thing that's kind of funny about this is I go to visit my mom, and I usually just sit and work on this. It's been hot, though. We had a couple days. It was 95, and I discovered I can't hold it on my lap. It can't sit on my lap. And so I'll go visit my mom, and I always drape it. It's getting long enough now that I can sort of drape it over the arm of the chair because otherwise it's just way too hot. So on a 95-degree day. Yeah. So, but
well, it'll be perfect once it gets to sort of mid-length. You'll be starting to get into cooler weather.
Yeah. And I had kind of hoped that, I think I had said this before, that I kind of hoped to finish it on October 20th because that was my dad's birthday. But I don't think that's realistic. I mean, maybe I can, but I don't know.
You would need maybe a 3 or 4 pack a day habit.
Yes. a carton a day.
Right.
But I mean, I have been making pretty good progress. So, I mean, I think it might be possible to finish it by Christmas. You know?
Yeah. Well, you are making pretty good progress.
Yeah.
So that's good.
But anyway, that's really all I have for projects. I've not started anything new because I'm not allowed to start anything new. I'm not permitted to do that. And then I have the
Marsha, you could start something new.
Oh, I can do anything I want to do. It is funny. We went when my mother-in-law. I will now say something about my mother-in-law during her visit. We went over to see Snoqualmie Falls and drove up through Carnation, where Tolt is. Mm-hmm. And Paul said, "Well, let's get out. You can go in and look at Tolt." I'm like, "No, I don't need to look at Tolt." And he's like, no, go look at Tolt. I'm like, "No, I don't need to go look at Tolt." And my mother was, "Yeah, let's go look at Tolt." I'm like, "No, I don't need to go look at Tolt because I don't need to buy anything." Not that I have nothing against Tolt yarn. It's a fabulous, fabulous company. And that's why I don't need to go in there because I don't need anything.
You know what will happen if you go in there.
Don't go in. You people are all enablers telling me to go in. You're supposed to say, "No, Marsha, we're not even stopping in Carnation. We're just going to drive through."
Well, I'm not starting anything new right now, but I am looking at something that I want to start.
Ooh, what are you looking at?
Well, I have sweater quantities, right? So several of them. And there's a gray sweater quantity of Neighborhood Fiber Company that I've been putting together a bundle of things for that yarn. And I have a few different ponchos. I think I want to use that yarn just to make a poncho, kind of a cape poncho type thing instead of a sweater. It's worsted weight. There was someone at Stitches who had a sweater made out of it, and it was pretty heavy. I mean, weight heavy, not like a heavy sweater like warm, but actually physically heavy. And so I don't know if I want to do a sweater. I think I would get more wear out of a poncho. So I've been browsing Ravelry and looking for ponchos. And then I also actually have a pattern that I am going to knit, or actually it's crochet. A pattern that I'm going to crochet. It's another Michelle Dunayer pattern, the same woman whose pattern I used for the lattice work cardigan. Mm-hmm. She has 2 sweaters out, and they're from World War II era. I think they're from World War I era reproductions. So she's found patterns and she's done, kind of reproduced them. And they're crochet. And the one I'm planning to make is called The Curious Case of the Crazy Stitch Cardigan.
Okay.
And I got really excited. Well, I was excited about the sweater when I saw it, but I got really excited when I saw what yarn it was made out of. It's made out of a yarn called Bamboo Pop, which is a DK yarn, and it's 50% cotton, 50% bamboo. Well, in my stash, I have a 50% cotton, 50% bamboo yarn, and I believe it's from Webb's. So I think I'm going to use that. It's another cobalt blue color. I don't know why, but I had a couple of different things in that shade. I like blue, so maybe that's why. But I thought, this will be perfect because bamboo fabric is very floppy. It has no structure to it. The nice way of saying it is it's drapey. The not so nice way of saying it is baggy, floppy. My niece said that she told her boyfriend that he could not say that her blouse was baggy. He had to say it was drapey. but bamboo yarn has that quality, right? So if I make a sweater out of it, I want to make sure I make a sweater out of it that's going to be able to be in a really loose, structured yarn. Not a yarn that has any real body to it, because it won't have any body at all in bamboo. And so this sweater was actually designed with this yarn. And so the sample's made in the yarn, and it looks like it's going to be a good choice. And if you think about crochet fabric, it's a little stiffer than knit fabric in a lot of cases. Right. And so that structure maybe is really good for the bamboo. So I haven't, again, what do you call it in crochet? I haven't hooked on.
Hooked on? You haven't gotten hooked.
I haven't gotten hooked. I'm excited to do it, but a little bit apprehensive about another crochet sweater. This one is a longer sleeve, longer.
Oh, because your other one was so successful.
It was. It's more work.
Oh,
it's not a crochet. Crochet is not something I can do socially or in public.
Oh, I
or
see.
Without.
It's a little more challenging for you.
It's like sit down with the pattern. Mm-hmm. Are you cutting things with scissors?
No, I'm knitting.
Oh, okay.
I'm knitting on my Afghan. Can you hear? Is this what
yes.
You hear?
Okay.
Yes. It's my big size 13 chunky needles.
All right. Well, you mentioned in the last episode that people might be able to hear your needles, and I didn't hear them at all. But this time I can hear them.
You could hear them because I stopped talking.
Oh. All right. Well, knit on, Marsha. Knit on.
So I'm knitting on. Yes. So
cool.
Anyway.
So,
all right.
So really, that's my knitting. One thing started, quilt squares finished, and the plan to get something on the hook. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
Okay. Well, what else do we have?
Well, I have some excitement from last weekend.
Ooh. Oh, yes. I know what this is. I'm excited to hear about it.
I went to the fleece show. Yes, it was so fun. There was the fleece judging for the Monterey County wool auction, the wool show. And this time, the judge was Mr. Jacobsen. And he has Jacobsen Ranch. I'll put a link in the show notes. Jacobsen Ranch. He raises Monterey and Suffolk sheep. And he actually has a sheep meat business, like probably lamb. Suffolk are typically meat sheep. And I think Monterey are also like a dual breed where you have the wool can be used, but also the meat, Okay. So anyway, so he was the judge. So this is the third different judge that I've watched judge fleeces. And it was interesting. I thought to myself, I wonder if there's something new that I'm going to hear after sitting through the fleece judging at Black Sheep and then sitting at the fleece judging last year, for the wool. But he was very interesting. And I learned a lot and got a third perspective. So that was cool. So I won't go through every single detail of my day, but I can give you a list of what breeds of sheep we had.
Well, and I'm going to interrupt just to ask, are you planning on going back Labor Day for the auction?
Oh, yes, I will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I
had to ask. I
will be there. In fact, I'm going on Friday. I'm going to there's handmade things, hand spun and hand knit, crocheted, woven things. And I'm actually going on Friday to help set up the wool room. And then I may be at the fair spinning on Saturday, at least part of Saturday and Sunday as well.
Okay.
So yeah, the fleece auction is on the 5th, September 5th. That's a Monday. That's Labor Day. But the fair is open starting from this coming Saturday. So this episode will go out on the weekend, and the Monterey County Fair will be open.
Okay.
So anybody who's in the Monterey County area, there's besides the wool auction, there's a whole room full of wool items, hand knit items, hand crocheted items, woven items. They have a bunch of displays, and a lot of times they have a drum carder out and show people how to do that. And they have a loom. I don't know if they'll have it this year, but they a lot of times will have the loom out and demonstrations, and then a lot of people there spinning, so you can talk to spinners and get enabled to become a spinner. So, yeah. So it was interesting. The judging is set up where they judge the fleeces by breed. So you can enter your fleeces by breed, similar to black sheep. You can enter your fleeces by breed. And then the other option is that you can enter your fleeces by in what's called market class. So in the breeds, you're being judged against the breed standard. And then in the market classes, you might have several different breeds in the same class, but they're grouped by the coarseness or fineness of the wool.
Okay. Is there an advantage of one over the other or not?
I asked about that at Black Sheep, and somebody said that they thought what people would do is if they had more than one fleece and, they wanted to get ribbons. So if you had, let's say you had 2 Romney sheep, you would take your best Romney sheep and enter it into the Romney class, and then you would take the other Romney sheep and enter it into the class that was like the medium wool class. And so then you have the potential of getting a first place in both classes.
Okay.
Whereas if you entered them both in Romney, you would get a first and a second. So some strategizing that way.
Okay.
So the breeds that I saw, so there were Cormo fleece, and unfortunately, I don't know if there are a lot of Cormo fans out there, but what I heard was that our number of Cormo fleeces has gone down because there was a Cormo breeder who has retired, and I guess there's not someone who's taken on that flock and is continuing that bloodline. So there's been fewer and fewer Cormo sheep, and next year I think the Cormo is going to be combined in with the merino. So there will just be one class. There won't be a separate class for Cormo. But there were Cormo fleeces, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful merino fleeces. There was an Oxford fleece, which I think is really interesting.
No, I don't think I've heard of that.
There was one last year, but somebody wanted it. And I knew somebody wanted it. And I knew that there would be somebody bidding against me if I bid for it. So I didn't bid on the one last year. This year, the person who wanted it last year got it. So, of course, you don't need the same, it's a good wool for socks, kind of a medium weight fleece, not a super soft fleece. And so, one whole fleece is a lot of socks. You probably don't need a second one the next year. There's some Rambouillet fleeces like the ones we bought last year. There were 8 Romney fleeces, which seems like a lot to me, but that was a really big class. And then we had Rommeldale / CVM. So Rommeldale is the white version, and CVM, California Variegated Mutant, is the variegated version. And so that class had some fleeces, a couple of fleeces. There were 2 Jacob fleeces.
Okay.
And those are interesting. They're fairly small, the Jacob fleeces. And then the super exciting thing was in the last category is called All Other Breeds. The super exciting thing was this class, because in this class there was a Santa Cruz Island sheep, or a fleece.
Oh.
Yeah, so Santa Cruz Island fleece. The Santa Cruz Island had feral sheep on it. And I did not go and reread the article to remind myself of how this goes, but the Santa Cruz Island had feral sheep. They had been originally from the Churro that were brought in by the Spaniards, and then some merino fleece or sheep had crossed with them. And so, it basically a feral breed that over the years had just sort of naturalized to the island. And then at a certain point, they were being removed from the island. They were destroying the native vegetation, and they needed to be removed from the island. So actually, someone who's instrumental in our fleece auction, and his name is Marion Stanley. He and his wife have been active with the Anne's Web group and the auction and the wool show at the Monterey County Fair for, I don't know, longer than I've even been in Salinas. And he was actually instrumental in helping to rescue them from the island, taking in the sheep that had been removed from the island and doing some breeding with them. And so the genetics, he said he's there. He helps with the show. And he said that the genetics of this sheep that was in the fair were actually descendants of the ones that he had. Mm-hmm. I guess he knows the producer. And this Santa Cruz Island sheep actually caught the judge's eye so well that it ended up as reserve grand champion.
Oh, wow.
In the breed, in the breed class. It ended up as reserve grand champion. So it was the second best fleece in the show of the breed sheep. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I was down there last year, I was looking for the Santa Cruz Island.
Oh, right, because you had that book and you had read about them.
And I had read about them, and it just sounded so interesting. I knew nothing about, is it something that you'd wear, against your skin, or is it, because you said it is descended from the churro, is it something that would be really coarse? I didn't know. Just that it was just such a cool story about these feral sheep that I wanted it. Yeah. But they didn't have any, so that's very exciting. So what is the fleece like? Were you able to see it, touch it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's, it was medium. I mean, it's kind of a medium coarseness. It doesn't have a real strong lock structure. So like when you look at a merino, you have little teeny zigzags in the fleece, the crimp, and then like a Romney, there are bigger zigzags, but it's really, you can see that zigzag, that crimp. Mm-hmm. If you look at, the long wools, it's open, it's a more open crimp, but the locks kind of stay together. This one's more like the down breeds where it just looks like a clumps of fuzz kind of, right? Medium weight, but not very organized, not organized into locks. Mm-hmm. So that would be interesting. Very springy, lots of elasticity, I would think, in the yarn that you would make from it. Probably not too much different from the Suffolk that I spun, that meat sheep, crossbreed Suffolk that I spun for so long. Mm-hmm. Not real super fine, again, like a medium weight, but yeah, really nice. There's crimp to it. It's just not organized. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about that one. I don't know what will happen with it. It may go for a really high price, depending on how many people are interested in this rare breed.
I completely lost track for a second here that you have not had the auction yet. So
no.
It's entirely... So are you thinking of that?
I am. It's on my list. I shouldn't say that though, right? Because I don't know who's listening, and now anybody who else is going to be at the auction will know. You should never tip your hand.
I know, but now when does this air again? This is airing the Sunday before the...
Yes. Yeah, it's a full week before the auction.
Kelly, you just have to edit this whole thing out.
No, I am interested. I don't know if I will... I'm not going to pay high price for it, but I might get in the bidding. I might be in the game there. And then another thing that was there was a Monterey, which is another breed that I've not seen before. So it's a medium wool. It was actually a little more organized crimp. Mm-hmm. And then we had 2 Shetlands.
Oh, very unusual for California.
Yes.
Right?
I remember I just said when we were talking about black sheep that I got a Shetland fleece because I never see Shetland fleece at the wool show. Nobody else, everyone else I talked to said, oh no, this is the first time I've seen it here. So I don't know if it's the first Shetlands ever. Probably not. This wool show has been going on for a long time.
Is that a Shetland that's raised in California?
Yeah, and I don't remember the name of the ranch that it comes from, but yeah, it's a California breeder. So that's exciting. Okay. I'm excited to see that. So some interesting selections in the different breeds. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they had all of the market classes, and they separate it. They do the white ones, and they go through all the market classes, which are categorized according to fineness. So fine, and then half blood, which is the fineness of that would be similar to a half merino sheep. And then there's 3/8 blood, which, again, the blood ratings have nothing to do with how much merino is in them, but just that classification of fineness would be what you would see in a 3/8 blood merino. 3/8 of the blood was merino. Quarter blood, low quarter, and then we didn't have any common and braid, which is the lowest, the coarsest class. And they separate it by white, and then they have any solid color other than white, and then they have variegated. So we had some really nice fleeces. The grand champion of the whole show was the grand champion breed fleece, which was the merino. And the champion variegated fleece was a beautiful variegated merino fleece. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. He used the word dreamy. And he said, it was kind of funny, he said, this is not a word I usually use, but this is not a word that's in my common vocabulary, but I have to say this fleece is dreamy. So, and then the colored fleece I posted on Instagram, the Grand Champion colored fleece I posted, it was a chrome silver color. Beautiful. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not coming down.
No, but if you wanted a fleece, I could bid for you.
Yeah. I want that Santa Cruz Island fleece.
Yeah, I would like to have that. I'm also interested in the Monterey since I have not ever spun that. So that might be an interesting one. And then I was trying to think of what might complement what I have in terms of blending. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm open.
Yeah. When we were down there, last year, if anybody, other than the ones like something really unusual and special, there was a little bit of a bidding war would go on. A good-natured bidding war would go on. But it was funny. I think that as soon as we would bid on something, everyone would stop bidding because they just wanted us to have it. Well, do you remember that?
Yes.
They really wanted it. They really wanted us to get what we wanted. So they would just. They were there to bid if they could. They would. I had the feeling that the Anne's Web ladies would purchase them if nobody else was bidding on them. So they would.
Well,
so as soon as we should.
It's a good thing to tell yourself. It's a good rationalization. You want to support the shepherd. Well, and just about everyone I talk to is really funny. There are about 24 people at the wool judging, and just about everyone I talked to on Saturday said, "Oh, I have so many, I don't need another fleece." And then there were some people who said, "Well, this isn't my year to buy fleece. I buy every other year so that I can, deplete the stash a little." So, but I do think there is some element of not wanting fleeces to go no sale.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in honor of this, since I'm not going to be there, I think I'm going to wash that black fleece I got at Black Sheep Gathering, that really dark. I pulled it out. When I came home, I put it in the closet where I have some other fleeces, and I did pull it out the other day, and I think I'm going to wash that Labor Day weekend. So I'll do something with fleece that weekend since I can't be down there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so anybody who can be there, it's on September 5th, and you can go to the Monterey County Fair Wool Show webpage or Monterey County Fair webpage. Also, Anne's Web has a Ravelry group. If you have any questions, you can probably ask in that Ravelry group, and someone could tell you. The viewing starts in the morning, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock, and then the fleece auction starts, I think, about noon. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So I had quite a fun adventure, Marsha. Have you had any fiber adventures the past 2 weeks?
Yes, I've had some fiber adventures. Now, I don't know if you want to call this fiber, but it's fiber. It involves material and dye, so that's fiber.
Cool,
right?
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, my mother-in-law was in town visiting, and we had a nice tour of the valley. We started in Redmond, and then we went to Duval, Carnation, down to see Snoqualmie Falls. And then it was super hot. It was about 96 degrees that day.
Wow.
And so I know it was miserable. And so we decided to go into the town of Snoqualmie to get some iced tea. We discovered there was a little festival going on. And they had craft booths set up. And one of the booths I went into, and you will just laugh when you hear what it is and what I purchased, but it's called To Die For. And it's owned by Joe Parmley, and it's all tie-dyed.
Oh, cool.
Now, you know me pretty well.
Yeah.
Do I have any tie-dye in my wardrobe?
No.
No. Did you ever think I would have tie-dye in my wardrobe?
If I had to put people on a list from most likely to least likely for tie-dye, you would be down near the bottom of the list.
Yes. Well, now I'm at the top of the list because I actually bought a tie-dyed skirt.
Oh, my gosh. Cool.
I'm shocked. I'm sorry, but it's so cute. I think it's really good looking. Anyway, but it was interesting talking to Jo, how she started her business. And her son was homeschooled, and part of his education was they decided to start a business so he could learn about money and, that you need to invest in the product, and then much do you mark things up, and how much do you figure out for labor and that whole thing. So they did this together. I'm not 100% clear, but I don't think he's involved in the business anymore. She's just doing it, and she's tie-dyeing and then going around to different festivals and selling her product. And so we had a really good conversation about dyeing. Also, I learned about the tie-dyeing technique. I was telling her that when I was probably in middle school, I wanted to tie-dye, and I thought tie-dye was done with bleach. Well, hold that thought. It is kind of a little bit. But anyway, so what I did is I got a piece of bright blue fabric, and I tied like rubber bands in all these strategic places, and then I soaked it in bleach. Well, I pulled it out. It was just like it just completely decomposed the fabric. So what I learned though is that there is bleach in the tie-dye process. So a lot of times, so some of her products, like she had dresses and skirts that started out black or a dark color of some sort, and then she ties it into different shapes and adds a bleach. It's not bleach like Clorox bleach, but it's a type of bleach that actually removes the color in sections, and then she overdyes it with the tie-dye with the different colors.
Oh, interesting.
But she had... Yeah, so it was really interesting, the whole process, which makes me want to do some tie-dyeing because it is an interesting process. She also, what she does is, if you have some sort of, she'll come in and do classes, like schools want to do tie-dyeing, she'll come in and do a class, or, maybe you go to one of those team building retreats, she'll come in and do tie-dye, which I think would be kind of a fun thing to do. So what Jo was saying is that she does do the very traditional tie-dye, which is a T-shirt with the rainbow-colored spiral on the front, which I did not know that that's considered the traditional look. She's also doing it much more sort of fashionable, fashion conscious, and for fans of tie-dye, I hope I don't offend anybody when I say fashionable, but more
less Grateful Dead and more runway.
A little bit more sort of sophisticated colors than just pure, rainbow color.
Right.
More blending of colors, more subtle variation in colors. A lot more when talking about removing the color and then overdying a lot more of that to get more subtle effects.
Right.
So I did buy a skirt that was, I believe, black, that she removed some of the color, I think, and then overdyed it with kind of a purple and a teal and a blue and I can't remember some other colors in there. It's really cute. And so I've worn it quite a bit. I wore it the next day, and so I'll try and get a picture of me in my tie-dye.
Very cool. I
wore it to see my mom, and my brother was asking me about the skirt, and I said, I was teasing him. I said, yes, I went to Hemp Fest. That's where I got it, because Hemp Fest in Seattle was going on this weekend, which this is interesting. There's about 100,000 people attend Hemp Fest down on the Seattle waterfront. I mean, I had no idea. I've never been to Hemp Fest. I had no idea it was that massive. It was such a big festival.
That's a lot
of people.
I did not.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. Anyway, I did not buy it there, but I Anyway, I just think that's kind of funny that I have my first tie-dye.
Yay.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was kind of funny is I was getting out of my car on Tuesday of this week, and I stopped by a friend of mine who is a mother that I knew from school when our children were in school together. And she said, "Oh, Marsha, her name is Colleen." And she said, "I just have to tell you," she's out walking her dog. And she said, "I just have to tell you, while I'm walking the dog, I'm listening to your podcast."
And she was walking by your house?
Walking by my house with her dog, listening to me talk.
Oh, my gosh.
Or drone on.
And you ran into her while she was listening to you talk?
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Just out in front of my house. Yeah, just in front of my house. So that was just kind of funny, that... So we kind of reconnected. Anyway, her name is Colleen, and she's Maisie Girl on Ravelry, if anybody wants to check out her project. She has some beautiful projects on Ravelry, as everybody does, have beautiful things. So that was just kind of funny. So that's my fiber in the wild.
All right. A listener spotting.
Yeah.
How fun.
A listener in the wild.
That's right, a listener in the wild. Good. Well, we have a listener who has left a comment on the blog that I wanted to acknowledge. Mm-hmm. It's Colton Fiber Lady on Ravelry, and she had commented about the blog post that we did with the hand-spun singles, and I put up the samples, showed all the different samples, and so she's used singles for her weaving projects, but hasn't ever used them for knitting, so hopefully now she's inspired to try knitting with her singles.
Very cool. Yeah. Any more fiber in the wild?
I don't have any fiber in the wild, but I do have a podcast recommendation. So one of our listeners, her name is Julia401, contacted me, I don't know, maybe 5-6 months ago because she was interested in starting a podcast and she wanted to know some of the technical details behind how we did it, how we podcasted with distance, right? Not face-to-face.
Right.
On a phone conversation. And so at that time I said, "Oh, great. Tell me about your podcast and I'll plug you." And she's like, "Oh, well, we haven't started yet. And besides, it's in German."
Oh.
So just recently she messaged me and let me know that they have a few episodes up and she feels like it's going well and she wanted, well enough to let people know. I know that feeling from the beginning. It's kind of like, okay, how many people do I want to tell that we're doing this?
Right.
So the name of the podcast is Volgestrecke. How's that for my German? I don't know if that, I'm sure that's...
Well, I think it's good because I don't speak German, so that sounds fabulous to me.
And just my knowledge of teeny little bit of German, I figured out that I thought it was called, the translation would be wool talk. And I was right.
Oh.
So that was cool. And they have, I don't know, maybe 5-6 episodes up. And it's in German. So if you speak German, it sounds really great. The sound quality is good. And if you speak German, I would encourage you to give it a try. It's on iTunes. At first I thought I might have to go to a different iTunes to find it, but it's in the U.S. iTunes. So if you speak German and you're interested in German-speaking podcasts, Julia401, Julia and her friend. Julia lives in France, and her friend lives in Germany, and they have a podcast about their knitting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't speak German, but I'm sure many of I'm sure we have listeners who do.
We do have listeners who speak German, yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. Okay. Well, I'll tell you my Enzo story.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned, my mother-in-law was in town visiting, and she's not a huge dog fan. Never really been around them, and it's not like she hates them, just not a huge fan of them. So, I knew this, so I really tried to keep Enzo kind of away from her, and he was really good. He's now at the point where he doesn't jump on people. He's grown out of that puppy stage, but he kind of wanted to smell her and put his head in her lap and lick her and all this kind of stuff, and she didn't really like that, so I would just tell him to leave it. And he was so funny because he would then not get more than 3 feet from her. He wouldn't get any closer than about 3 feet. I'm telling you this because I think I have an exceptionally smart dog. Now, I'm prejudiced, I know, because he's my dog, but
that's pretty good for a dog that's under a year old to be that convinced when you say leave it? Yeah.
Well, and it's not like I hit him or anything either. Or I didn't do, that really harsh voice. I just would say, leave it. And he really did leave her alone. And so then the other part of it is, the guest bedroom, he wanted to go in there and smell, her suitcase. And he actually did take one of her socks because that's his favorite thing to do is like steal the pot holders and the towels and take them outside. Mm-hmm. And he took one of her socks and took it outside. So I told him no. And I told, and I said, no. I don't know exactly what I said to him because it wasn't that many words because he's a dog. He didn't say, don't go in Grandma's bedroom anymore. I didn't say that. But anyway, I told him he couldn't go in there and he would not go in her room. He would stand in the hallway, though, and stare at her through the bedroom door.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, but by the end of the week, she loved that dog, and she would, she'd pet Enzo, and at one point she even kissed him on the top of the head. And I got an email from her, and she said, enjoyed spending time with you and Ben. Enzo was the best. Good dog, good dog. He is so much fun. He took away from you and Ben. I think my mother-in-law likes my dog better than she likes me.
I would say that's high praise coming from someone who's not a dog person. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he was a good boy, very good boy. So yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's my Enzo story.
Nice. You have a good dog, Marsha. How's agility?
I know.
Have you gone to the class?
No, I've not gone to it because this past week, I was with my mother-in-law, and then the week before that, I was cleaning for my mother-in-law. So this week I'm going to make an appointment. I think I'm going to go to two nights a week, I think is what I'm going to try and do.
Oh, cool.
Because you just buy like a punch card of classes, and then you can every week you can decide when you want to go. So I think I may have said this before, but I'm just going to alternate between obedience 2 and agility. Mm-hmm. So maybe, an obedience 2 class and an agility class each week. So I'm going to try. This week probably is now. It's Wednesday, and I've not done anything. So next week. Okay, I'm saying that out loud. Next week I'm doing it. So I will do it.
Yeah. All right. We'll check in.
Yeah. Oh, but I have to say, though, when I took Enzo to the dog park today up in Edmonds, they have a little agility course set up.
Oh, fun.
With a ramp, and you know how in agility they have the posts, the vertical posts, and then they have to walk on either side of them?
Yeah, the weave poles.
Okay, is that what they're called? Yes, they have that set up. They have a ramp, and they have a concrete tube.
Okay.
It's just like like a irrigation tube.
Right.
But they have that set up that they can go through, and they have a couple little gates that they can jump over.
All right.
At least 2, maybe more than that. 2 different heights, maybe 3 of them, and there are different heights that you can practice. So he went up and down the ramp. I could not get him to go through the tube, and I could not get him to jump over the little gates.
Yeah.
But I was also running out of treats by that time, too. So anyway. But he's such a good boy.
Yay, Enzo.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anything else?
I think we're at the end.
Yeah. We didn't have very much to report on this episode, but that's okay.
Because the next episode will be after the auction.
There'll be so much to talk about.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Have a good 2 weeks.
All right. You too.
And I'm excited to hear about the auction.
All right.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 U's
doing our part for World Fleece.